see.
Would you start over, Stephanie, telling us a little about yourself? Leah, ask her again. She is our guest for tonight, so ask her the question.
Stephanie says that I can call her Stephanie, so I was asking Stephanie a little bit about herself, and I can also tell by the way she loves to use expression when she articulates. I can imagine that you're a tremendous singer.
Well, I really, singing's my first talent. For me, it just came very easily. I started singing probably at around 9, played the piano for 12 years, and went to college on a full vocal scholarship. Howard University, was discovered by Oscar Brown Jr. and Les McCann, who were two very big jazz artists at that time. They found out that I could read and sight sing. A lot of times back then, people only could hear music and repeat it. But I had studied under the great late Carl Weston. He was one of the top music producers on Broadway. And I studied with him from a child, went to college and, then did that for a while, was on a lot of famous people's albums, background work. Then I decided I wanted to go back to college, went to University of Maryland, College Park, majored in business, ended up getting married, had 2 wonderful children. That marriage ended in divorce. And I just have done a lot of things. I've been an international flight attendant. I have done things like speaking. People ask me for speaking engagements. I do a lot of writing. I do believe that a lot of times when we have a talent that's in the arts, it crosses over into other things. So I can write poetry, things like that. Ended up being an interior designer. And I was actually an interior designer to a lot of the celebrities. I did the houses of the Pittsburgh Steelers, Dallas Cowboys, Miami Dolphins, and a lot of the famous Atlanta Falcons. And that was wonderful. And kept doing that. Migrated from there and transitioned. I evolved. I believe that in life, we must always evolve. We should always be growing as women. I started to evolve, take some classes, and today I am a state licensed residential, light commercial general contractor. I renovate homes and I build, and I love it. For the last couple of years, maybe 8 years, I fell upon something that ended up hitting me in my heart, and that was doing homes for seniors and for veterans so that they're not displaced in the city of Atlanta, Fulton County. And it's just wonderful. I usually say behind every door is a story. Wonderful people.
Were you one of the few women, Stephanie, to get your commercial contractor's license, or had women already started entering that field?
When I got my license in about 2006, the young lady in Macon, Georgia, said to me at the time, make sure you treasure this, because very few women are getting residential light commercial. So I was one of the first women. It was probably a pocket of us when Georgia decided to license people, because they did not start licensing until about 2006. And I was one of the few that was residential light commercial.
What does it allow you to bid on a job? What is the cap on that?
Well, the cap is usually not monetary, but it's sizing. Like I can build a Zaxby's, I can build a church, I can build townhouses, I can build residential houses. I can go in, and when it comes to buildings up to 4 stories high, I can do a lot of things at the airport. So it opens a lot of doors, but I will tell you, with this license comes a lot of challenges for women.
Oh, I can understand. It seems to me that you're the kind of person who is a perpetual learner.
Yes, I try to learn something new every day. I think it's very important for us to progress as we go forward. I found out when I was about 30 or 40, I went to a conference, And it was brought up that the United States is one of the few countries that people go to college and then get a degree, and we don't have continual learning. Other countries, people are constantly staying ahead of the curve. So with myself, I try to stay on the forward or the leading edge, not the trailing edge.
How do you get, Stephanie, women to invest in themselves? For example, Dr. Lee has a school. And how do you talk to women so that they would just do something for themselves and continue learning? Because there's so many great classes in the school. How do you talk to women so that they take note that they should learn continuously something?
Well, I think the first thing is good listening. When you first listen to women, women are complex, but so simple. And what holds a lot of people back as far as women, they have fears about their accomplishments. They've been labeled. Oh, you look like a teacher. You look like a nurse. You can only do this. You're a second wage earner. From young, they have bought in from the fairy tales of Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty. And a lot of times women have fallen into the fairy tale of the prince, and that Prince Charming will come. And Cinderella is looking for the lost slipper. So when I start talking to women and I listen to them, I find out what's in their core. And I also talk to them and try to get them to understand the glass slipper is within them. It is just like Dorothy. She clicked her heels 3 times to go home, but home was always right there in her soul. And a lot of women have been sold out, and they sell themselves out on how they can accomplish certain things, whether it is age, whether it is gender discrimination, they buy into it. So I first listen, because everybody's trigger and everybody's fear is different.
Dr. Lee, what would you like to add?
I was just wondering, some of the homes that you have built, Stephanie, for some of the famous people that you have built their homes, designed their homes.
Okay, well, when I was in that stage of my life, I was an interior designer. And it was interesting because being an interior designer, or anyone that's offering a service, you have to go for excellence. So I always was a person that believed in excellence. And once again, it goes back to listening. It wasn't that I was better than everyone else. I was just more creative than most people. One time I was interviewed and I was put in a book, a coffee table book. And I think I was the first minority to be in a coffee table book that was sold in Barnes and Noble. And when the lady came to my door, I said, well, I know you've heard about me and I know you want to put me in your book, but did they tell you I was an ethnic woman? And she said, well, no, I didn't think it was important. I said, well, I think what you need to do is go in Barnes and Noble, then tell me what you think. It was wonderful because when she showed up at the door, she said, well, I think you're still an ethnic woman. And we laughed. But at that time, when she interviewed me, and I think this is what was the statement that had her decide that I needed to be chosen. It was 40 of the top designers. And she said to me, do you think your work is so beautiful and people use you because you think outside the box? And I said, no, I've never seen a box. I have no perimeters. I have no parameters. So I can't think out of something that was never there. And a lot of times women box themselves in, or they box themselves out, or the worst, they sit on the perimeter.
Stephanie, is that your room that you're in right now?
Yes, it is. This is part of my family room.
Well, I love those paintings or whatever those are behind you. Those are gorgeous.
Thank you. That is, I've traveled extensively, and I'm very, I'm just very overwhelmed with the differences of people that when you are exposed to them, it enriches your life. This is part of the Omo tribe of Ethiopia. They are probably a few of the last indigenous tribes, and very primitive, and people do go there. They live in the valley, and they adorn themselves with fruits and flowers, and they've never ever left that region. The photography is wonderful. So if you remember that, the Omo tribe, Ethiopia, and just wonderful. And I have quite a few pictures and oils and photography from my travels. I think it's very important, especially for women. It's important to expose yourself. Once you can expose yourself and you can see what's attainable, then you can reach it. When you see something in a book or you see it on television, that's what it is. But a lot of times as women, we put our children first. We put our careers first. We put everything first except our own enrichment. And part of our enrichment is to be able to go and see a bigger space, not just be local, not just be regional, to be global. The world becomes your playground. You start seeing other women. You start seeing how things move. In the last 90 days, I've been to Cape Town, South Africa. I've been to Joburg. I've been to Sun City. I came back for 3 weeks. And then I took a 21 days transatlantic cruise. The most beautiful part of this cruise, a lot of times as women, we don't realize the enrichment of just getting away and just having yourself and peace and unfamiliar surroundings. A lot of times we want to do different things, but it is very hard to do something different when you're doing everything the same in the same place. So I was on this ship, and for 11 days, we were on the ocean. Some people, trust me, they had a ball from morning to night. What did I do? I went there to read. I read construction. I did a new business plan. I decided to tweak my life professionally and personally. And what we have to do, back in the day, they used to have a business plan. And that business plan actually showed you what to do with your business for the life of the business. Well, things are moving faster now. So anything that you do has to be measurable. It has to start with like a SWOT analysis. You have to know your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. And now they're changing every day. 20 years ago, you could mess up and there was always another job down the road. There was always another career. So in this transatlantic trip, I went there for peace, and I went there to redevelop and remodel my life, because a lot of people don't realize that your life is a business. It's the business of enriching and running and having control of your life. So then I went to Portugal, 3 parts of Spain, 2 areas of France. I went to Rome for 3 days, went to Venice for 3 days, and now I'm back in Atlanta.
I was interested when you were talking about your design business, and you said that you were the only minority in that book.
Yes.
Do you find you have to present your work differently depending upon who the client is? Let's say if it's a Caucasian woman versus a football player, do you present yourself differently, or do you just present yourself as the same human being?
Well, I present myself as the same human being. I grew up in a very diverse environment in the Northeast. Moving to the South was very different for me, because there were certain things at the time, going back to the 90s when I moved here, that I didn't think about. I went to a conference once, and a gentleman was telling everybody at that time to put their faces on their card. And that's when I thought about it, because I'm up here and to have a lot of different people and entertainers, and they used to always see my ads in the magazine, but I never put my face. And I never put my face because there were a couple of times people were very honest. I had a wonderful woman. She opened the door and she says, I'm not racist, but if I knew you were Black, I don't know if I would have called you. She said, but come on in. She said, and she felt bad. She wasn't even ready to talk about the house. This lady, she was from New York. She all of a sudden said, I don't know why this hit me like this. So then we talked. She said, I've seen your work. I love it. I did her home. And I stayed in touch with her for years. And she said, we think that we're not, racist. We think that we're this and we think that we're that, and we don't want to claim it. She said, but until that moment, I realized that I have some things inside of me. What I told her was, I don't blame her for that. And I don't. I said, because first of all, now that you're aware, then you can be held accountable. Do you understand? And so the fact that there was awareness